CJ Stroud gives Caleb Williams advice after the game, tells him not to take hits, and all of a sudden the internet goes weird. I want to touch on this a little bit. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I'm Landry Locker. I'm on the scene every day, and I got you covered morning live, night live when it comes to the Texans. Practice reports as well on the digital beat. I want to touch on this Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud situation, and I'm actually kind of fascinated that it is a situation. CJ Stroud was mic'd up. He told Caleb Williams not to take hits. The clip went viral and everybody had opinions. Let's start at 670 the score in Chicago. This Bernstein fella, he's been getting a lot of crap from Barstool. Kind of seems like just the typical entitled blowhard media type that started out in print and somehow he's been lingering around in radio for a long, long time. Here's what he had to say. I say somehow that happens. Here's what he had to say about the Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud situation.
Unsolicited advice. We were debating this of where Stroud is coming from. I found it to be a little presumptuous, if not performative on his part. I think it's one thing. What do you think the protocol is for when you can give advice like you're an OG quarterback in that moment after a hard-fought NFL game? If you're the same age as a guy, to go over and treat him like he's your kid, I could understand if Caleb Williams is like, look, I might hear this from Aaron Rodgers. I'm not hearing it from you.
Well, and the other side of it too, look, I think there's a segment of the media and the fan base that wants to find fault with anything and everything Caleb Williams does. So it distorts our view and our reaction to what he does. I try to watch objectively. Yeah, he seems like a guy who just lost a football game and really isn't interested in getting a lecture at midfield about basic, obvious stuff. Keep fighting. I mean, I don't need to hear cliches. I want to go change my clothes and get the hell out of here. So, I think some made too much of it. But you're right. At what point?
But I'm going to do it.
CJ Stroud become Tom Brady? He's not there yet. So I think it was just a weird thing all around. I think it's not CJ Stroud's place to preach to a guy who's just 1 year behind him by way of experience. And from Caleb's perspective, look, you just lost a game. You really, you don't want to hear it. But I wasn't surprised. I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised that the knee-jerk reaction by most was, oh, who does Caleb think he is?
No, that wasn't my reaction at all. My reaction was, and I said,
who does CJ Stroud think he is? That's exactly what Dan's reaction.
All right, so here's my thing on this. Why do you have to pick a side in this? Because I think the CJ Stroud criticism is interesting. I think it's weird because I don't think CJ Stroud is the type of guy who at all is trying to get attention or draw attention when it comes to this. But I also think Caleb Williams just got his ass whooped. As a matter of fact, like you go back minutes before this, Daniil Hunter basically slammed him to the ground. He had to get up and try to score. So he's probably a little bit worn out. So if he's not sitting there crisscross applesauce ready for the advice, I understand. But to look at that and say he was over CJ Stroud's advice, F Caleb Williams or F CJ Stroud, I don't even know why a side has to be picked when it comes to this. This was CJ Stroud during his media availability the other day. This is what CJ Stroud had to say about this situation and all the attention that it's gotten.
I had some of the best advice given to me last year, and me and Caleb, I was not trying to like treat him like I was trying to like little bro him or not. He knows that too. I have a ton of respect for him. I told him I have respect for him. But I had so many guys coming to me after games last year, and that meant the world to me. That those guys even thought about giving me advice. So I just try to get back to what the game has given to me. So I wish him the best, man. I want him to do amazing in this league. I think he will. I think that he'll get his groove. And once you get your rhythm, I didn't get my rhythm until like week 3, week 4. So I can see his game picking up from here. And so, I don't think he was trying to like, be any towards way. He's just upset that they lost. I totally understand. So I have a ton of respect for that guy, man. I want him to do extremely well, just like any other guy until we play on that day. You know what I mean? And after the game, we can be cool. You know what I mean? But I'm definitely, rooting for him and want to see him do extremely well.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I don't think you have to pick a side when it comes to the quarterbacks. I also don't know where this age comes in. Now, that sounds like a guy who's like in his 60s that's just been around for a while and thinks that you have to earn some sort of keep. But I expect that from the Bernstein fella. Mike Florio has an identity crisis. I always preface this by saying, I think Mike Florio is one of the best resources for NFL media that there is. I think even his critics use him as a resource. I think he's one of the best aggregators. I think he's on top of things. I think he does an excellent job, but I also think he has an identity crisis. I think he has more of an identity crisis than Bruce Jenner did on the back end of keeping up with the Kardashians. On one hand, he says people try to make a lot of what Caleb Williams does. You've done that with Aaron Rodgers. You've done that with Deshaun Watson. You've done that with Brian Flores. You've done that with Colin Kaepernick. We could list all types of things. So Mike Florio kind of speaks out of both ends there. Also, he wants to be a reporter, but then he wants to be an aggregator. I've seen him at points say Aaron Rodgers has generated this much traffic. So some would say it's a diverse skill set. I think it's more of an identity crisis with Mike Florio, and he does a lot of things. But again, one of the top resources. But for him to say people want to make a lot of this, that is very, very rich coming from him. The Bernstein fella, I just think he's your typical blowhard radio guy who's just kind of lost his mind. He's a little bit of a wacko. I think he's gotten in the Barstool smoke. So I don't put a lot in what he said. The most interesting reaction I did see, though, I saw that Nick Wright of Fox Sports 1, and it's the great Nick Wright, he was talking about the age difference between CJ and Caleb and saying that doesn't need to be, you don't need to take advice from people of that age, and this isn't a big bro, little bro. Let me tell you this. Nick Wright has been beyond his years in this industry for a long time. It's been pretty well accepted and known that he was going to be successful. I can promise you that Nick Wright has given solid advice to people either older than him or around his same age. So I was really shocked to hear Nick Wright have to partake in this. But again, that's kind of where we live. You got to kind of take a side. Is it CJ Stroud or is it Caleb Williams? I personally think it's just two young men after a game going up to each other, saying something, a little small piece of advice, and the guy just getting roughed up, and his mannerisms probably aren't like, oh, thank you so much, I appreciate it, after he just lost and got his ass kicked, got sacked 7 times, and got pressured the strong majority of the game. So I don't even think anyone needs to pick a side. I think the people criticizing CJ Stroud are being weird, and I think the people criticizing Caleb Williams are just as weird, and that's really how I look at this whole thing. Practice report today, Texans back on the field, 11:45. We'll talk to CJ Stroud's offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, also going to have some open locker room, but this is just kind of what players sign up for. You've heard CJ talk about that. CJ's also been kind of scrutinized, as has Caleb Williams, so they can kind of relate. They are peers. They are equal. And I think 1 year of successful NFL football is a lot more than just, oh, these guys are a couple months apart. What do you think? Are you calling out CJ Stroud? Are you calling out Caleb Williams? Do you think Bernstein and Florio are spitting fire? What do you think about Nick Wright? Let me know. Subscribe, like, ride along. Best Texans coverage in the country. I'm Landry Locker. This has been another edition, brief edition of The Locker Room.